Hey, I'm Lux, and this is Lux Unfiltered, where we talk about the messy, brilliant, infuriating parts of growing, healing, and being a human that refuses to pretend that they're not. If you've ever found yourself asking, was that really kind, or was I just being managed? This episode is for you, because today we're talking about kindness, more specifically fake kindness, manipulative kindness, performative kindness. The kind that leaves you feeling confused, indebted, and just a little bit hollow. If you're someone who grew up with conditional love, you've had a few too many friendship breakups that left you spiraling, or you've ever felt like you've been that helpful person who started to realize, oh, I'm performing. Then buckle up, because we're about to get very real. Let's start at the root. Growing up under the control of parents who felt like narcissists, kindness was never just kindness. It was a trap, a shiny, glittery, perfectly timed trap. A well-placed compliment here, what felt like a thoughtful gift there, praise just when I needed to feel seen the most, but never too much, never consistent. Just enough to keep me hungry, or just enough to keep me working, just enough to keep me hoping that maybe this time they'd change. Maybe they'd really mean it. But they didn't. It wasn't about me. It was never about me. It was about control. About keeping me in line and maintaining that image. About keeping me dependent. And the wild thing is, I didn't even clock it as manipulation for the longest time. Because that was just how kindness looked in my world. Kindness meant you owed something. Kindness came with strings. Kindness was a performance with a purpose. So I became suspicious of it. Even when someone was being genuine, I'd get my back up. I'd look for the catch. I'd wonder what the price was this time. And worse, I started copying it. Because if that's the only kind of kindness you've ever known, how do you know what's real? Here's where it gets murky, though. I wasn't just a victim of manufactured kindness. I was also the perpetrator of it, too. Not in the mustache-twirling villain kind of way, but in a trauma-soaked, approval-hungry, please pick me kind of way. I genuinely saw myself as the generous friend, the reliable one, the helper, the one who would go above and beyond, who loved going above and beyond. But under all that helpfulness was a deep, desperate need to be chosen, to be useful. Because I thought usefulness was love. I created these codependent dynamics, built entire roles for myself in people's lives. I'd be their fixer, their advisor, their emotional support team, their project manager, their career coach. I'd give and give and give and give and call it kindness. And then I'd spiral when they didn't choose me, when they dropped me, when they stopped performing back. And I'd like to say, how could they, after everything I did for them? But the real question was, why did I feel like I had to do all of that in the first place? I didn't want reciprocity. I just wanted to feel safe. I wanted to feel essential. I wanted to earn my place. That's not real kindness, though. That's not generosity. That's fear in a nice outfit. And when I say I had to unlearn this, I mean burn it to the ground and start again. Because when you've been trained to believe that love has to be earned, it's hard to accept it freely. It's hard to not offer something back right away. It's hard to just sit in being loved without panicking that it's going to cost you later. I remember the first time I experienced true, no strings attached kindness, and it didn't come from some big romantic moment. It came from my neighbors, just being kind. Not for clout, not because they needed me, not because they saw me as an asset, just kindness. They liked me as I was, unmasked, not curated, not useful, just me. And my first instinct, I tried to offer something. I tried to prove I was worthy of that kindness. I offered help, favors, something to even the score. I couldn't believe someone would just give to me without expecting anything in return. And it broke my brain a little, I won't lie to you. And it also gave me something to rebuild from. And it's mad, right? Because Once you realize how deep that conditioning goes, you start to see it everywhere. Every time I caught myself doing something nice, I had to ask, was this for them or was it for me? And sometimes I'd have to drop everything to help someone, not because they asked me to, but because I needed to feel valuable. I needed to feel chosen. Like, if I just did this one more thing, they'd never leave. Spoiler, they did. Because you can't make people stay by performing. You can't build a real connection on obligation. And as painful as that was to learn, it also set me free. Because here's the part I didn't expect. Once I stopped trying so hard to be useful, once I stopped showing up with my little emotional resume, like, here's all the reasons I'm worthy of your love, the right people stayed. Not out of obligation, just because they wanted to. And the ones who didn't, that stopped hurting in the same way. Because now, when someone leaves, I don't make it mean I wasn't good enough. I make it mean we weren't a match. And that's it. There's no extra narrative required. You can just not be with somebody anymore. And it doesn't fault who you are or who they are. Sometimes you just don't match. But to get to that place, I had to call myself out hard. There was a point around the time of my big friendship breakup a few years ago where I had to sit in the discomfort of realizing that I'd been part of the problem. Not the problem, but I was a part of it. I wasn't just the one getting dropped. I was showing up in these ways that made the connection conditional. I wasn't fully honest about what I needed. I wasn't giving people space to disappoint me. I was trying to love them into becoming who they said they wanted to be instead of just seeing who they are actually. And listen, that's not always coming from a manipulative place. Sometimes it comes from that deeply autistic and deeply ADHD, deeply romantic part of you that wants it to work, that wants the fairy tale, that wants the best in people, that sees potential and wants to help build it. But that's not love. That's project management. And you're not here to be anyone's unpaid intern in their own life. The way I used to latch on to people, it wasn't just about connection. It was about identity. I thought if I could help someone become their best self, then I must be good too. I'd feel needed, valuable, chosen. But what I didn't realize is that I wasn't falling for them. I was falling for who they said they wanted to be. I befriended the potential. I dated the ambition and I ignored the reality. And then I got heartbroken when the reality inevitably didn't live up to the ideal. And look, not everyone wants to be the best version of themselves that they talk about. Not everyone can, and not everyone should. And I didn't see that back then. I was so busy offering tools and advice and support and encouragement because I had them, because I had the experience, I'd been in therapy, I had the language. So I'd overfunction for the both of us. And then, of course, they'd burn out or disappear or get defensive or resentful because no one likes to be fixed, especially when they didn't ask for it. And I'd be left gutted. But I was just trying to help. And yeah, I was. But it wasn't selfish, selfless. It was self-protective. It was me trying to make myself indispensable so they wouldn't leave. But the truth is, people leave anyway. You can give them everything and they can still walk. You can love someone at their worst, show up consistently, bend over backwards, and they'll still choose distance. And when you finally realize that, you also realize something else. You don't have to perform anymore. You don't have to earn love. You just have to be. And let's be honest, just being, is so much harder than performing. Because performing gives you a sense of control. You think you can curate the version of yourself that's lovable. You think you can earn your way into someone's life. But being means trusting that who you are is enough. Even when you're not useful. Even when you're quiet. Even when you're not on. And that's where the real kindness comes in. Because real kindness holds space for the whole version of you. It doesn't need you to be impressive. It doesn't collapse when you're not at your best. It doesn't guilt you or control you or play mind games to keep you around. Real kindness is patient. Real kindness is spacious. Real kindness says, you don't owe me anything. And when you grow up without that, it's jarring as hell. Like I said, my neighbors were the first people in my adult life who gave me that. They didn't ask me to shrink or perform or show up in a particular way. They liked me as I was, with my brain fog, with my weird schedule, with my over-apologizing and awkwardness, with the mess, with the realness. And at first, I didn't believe it. I kept trying to offer something in return. Let me help with this. Let me bring that. Let me earn this space that you've made for me. But they didn't ask for anything. And over time, I learned to stop offering just to keep the peace. I learned to sit in their kindness and let it land. And that changed me. Because when you expect fake and you experience real unconditional kindness, it rewires something in your brain. Suddenly, the manipulative stuff doesn't hit the same. You start seeing things clearly. You start feeling the difference. You stop mistaking intensity for care. You stop confusing being needed for being loved. And you stop chasing people who only want the curated version of you. Because the people who want the real you, they don't need fixing. They just want to sit with you. And that they'll let you sit with them too. And that's the shift I didn't expect. Once I learned to sit with real kindness, I couldn't stomach the fake kind anymore. The overly generous friend who is always doing the most, but somehow you always leave the conversation feeling like you owe them something. The person who love bombs you with support when they want something from you, but disappears the second you stop being useful. The person who plays the victim when you set a boundary, making your no feel like a betrayal. I used to ignore these red flags because I saw them as quirks. Now I see them for what they are. They're rehearsed performances, conditional, calculated, and honestly, kind of cowardly. And I'll admit, I've played these roles too. I've been the overgiver. I've been the person that makes people feel indebted, not intentionally, but because I was stuck in the same script, I thought I had to buy my place in people's lives. I thought kindness was transactional. So I started interrogating my own patterns. Every time I wanted to offer help, I asked myself, am I doing this because I want to, or because I'm scared of not being chosen? Every time someone did something kind for me, I noticed the impulse. Do I immediately want to give something back so I don't feel guilty for receiving? Every time I felt abandoned or rejected, I would sit with the fear. I do sit with the fear that I think this person would stay because I was useful, and now I'm angry they didn't. It's uncomfortable. Like, rip your skin off. Uncomfortable. But it's liberating. Because once you start recognizing the difference, you start reclaiming your nervous system. Because let's be real, most of us mistake familiar for safe. And if you grew up with conditional love, manipulative kindness, or do this or I'll withdraw from you energy, then what your body registers as normal is that hot, confusing, high stakes dynamics. That's what your nervous system thinks is normal. And it's not. But that's where you repeat the patterns over and over and over again because it feels safer to be in the chaos that you know than it's the unknown. So when someone comes along with like real kindness, this quiet, steady, patient vibe, you're like, this is boring. This is cold. This is fake. But it's not. You are just dysregulated. You're reacting to the absence of chaos, but like it's danger because your baseline has always been chaos for so long. So when my nervous system gets activated now, I don't always listen thinking it's a red flag. Sometimes it's just unfamiliar. Sometimes I'm reacting to safety because all I've ever known is survival. And that's the piece that took me the longest to get. That sometimes what feels boring is actually peace. And sometimes what feels familiar is actually dysfunction in a new outfit. So now when I feel that tight chest, that spiraling brain, that urge to do something to keep the connection, I pause. I remind myself it is safe to receive and I do not have to earn this. I am lovable even when I am still. And I want to talk about something else that's helped me rewire this old conditioning. Learning to accept compliments. It sounds so small, right? But it's massive, especially when you're socialized to be humble, when you're taught to downplay everything about yourself, when confidence is seen as arrogance and receiving is seen as selfish. I used to brush off compliments that were like lava. Oh, no, it's nothing. Oh, I just threw this together. Oh, you're too kind. And then one day I stopped. I decided to say thank you. And then I started saying, I know, right? Not as a joke, as a declaration. You like my outfit? I know, right? I felt so good in it. You love something I made, right? I put so much time into that. Thank you for seeing it. You think I'm talented? I worked so hard to be this good. I'm glad it shows because I do know and I am proud. And denying that isn't modesty, it's self-abandonment. And we're taught so much, especially as femme-presenting people, that we need to shrink or abandon ourselves for modesty. Why? Now, when someone compliments me, I let it land. I don't scramble to repay it. I don't shrink. I let the words sink into my body and remind the younger version of me that it's safe to be seen. And that's how you reparent yourself. That's how you teach your inner child. You don't have to be impressive to be loved. You don't have to perform to be worthy. You can just be. And I repeat it often. I am allowed to receive. It is safe for me to receive openly and freely. Some days I don't believe it. Some days I still try to give too much. And some days I spiral over and over again, and I over-explain and I over-apologize, but then I catch it. And I catch myself mid-people pleasing, and I pause, and I course correct. And that's the work, not being perfect, just being aware, catching yourself sooner. And one of the hardest pills to swallow in all of this has been realizing that I've given people roles in my life based on who they wanted to be and not who they actually were. And it sounds generous on the surface, right? I believed in them, but it's not fair. It's not real. It's projection. It's me falling in love with their potential and holding them to a version of themselves they hadn't even lived yet. And maybe they never would. It's like expecting someone to act like a doctor because they've talked about wanting to go to med school once. You can't build a relationship with someone's resume of intentions. You have to deal with what they bring to the table today, right now. And this is where so many of the friendship breakups came from. I was pouring into people who didn't have the capacity or even maybe the desire to pour back. It was handing out tools and strategies and resources and encouragement like I was running a wellness boot camp, and then getting upset when they didn't want to do the work. But the truth I had to face was that not everyone wants to be better, and not everyone can be better right now. Not everyone asked for your help in the first place. Like, who am I? So now when someone tells me who they are, I believe them. When someone says that they're chaotic, I don't assume that they mean quirky but functional. When someone says they hate drama, but drama follows them like a second shadow, I clock that. I don't try to rescue people from their own patterns anymore. But because it's not my job to save anyone, it's my job just to show up honestly and leave space for them to do the same. And it's such a relief. I don't want to be anyone's emotional service provider. I want reciprocity. I want connection. I want slowness and intentionality, because that's the real kind of kindness. It's not flashy. It's not loud. It's not this big grand gesture to be posted online. It's that someone showing up for you quietly, consistently, and with no invoice attached. It's you showing up for yourself without needing to prove anything, and it's a friendship that doesn't collapse the second you stop performing. And yeah, it took me way too long to learn that, but now that I know, I can't unknow it. I can feel it in my body. I can tell when someone's kindness is a currency when it's a gift. And I've learned to stop feeling guilty for choosing the gift over the transaction. I want to be really clear about something as we wrap this up. Taking accountability for your part in a dynamic doesn't mean you're excusing someone else's shitty behavior. That's where the nuance is in everything, right? There are people who absolutely manipulated me, who used me, who love bombed me, who ditched me the second I didn't show up as convenient to them, who took my kindness as a green light to extract every ounce of energy that they could from me, and then spun the narrative that made me look like the problem. And I'm not here to pretend that I didn't deserve that. I didn't. But I am here to say I participated in those dynamics, even unknowingly. And if I don't name that, I can't change it. It doesn't mean I forgive everything. It doesn't mean I'm saying that both sides were equally wrong. It means I looked at myself and went, what made me stay? What part of me needed that chaos? What part of me was trying to prove that I was worthy? And that's where the whole self-awareness goes, right? It doesn't turn into blame. It turns into forgiveness for myself, maybe for others. It turns the pain into a lesson. And I'd rather be someone who learns than someone who repeats. So now I check in with myself often. I ask myself, am I giving because I want to, or because I'm afraid I'll be forgotten? Am I offering this because it feels good, or because I feel guilty if I don't? Am I receiving this kindness with an open heart, or am I bracing for an invoice? And it's wild how much that small pause has changed my relationships, because now I can feel the difference in my nervous system, because real kindness is calming. Manufactured kindness charges me up, makes me overthink, makes me restless, makes me prepare for the fall. It activates that deep, old fear of being used, of being dropped, of being too much or not enough. But I don't want to live there anymore. I don't want to keep bracing for impact whenever someone's nice to me. I don't want to keep performing this generosity just to feel worthy. I want slowness. I want presence. And I want trust that if someone gives me something, I can receive it without having to pay a price. That if I give something, it's because it comes from joy, not obligation. And dude, that shit's hard. When you've been raised on manipulation, real connection feels so foreign. When you're taught that love is transactional, unconditional kindness feels fake. And when you've survived on being needed, being loved for simply existing feels fucking terrifying. But it's possible. It's learnable. It's rewritable. And I know that because I'm doing it messily, imperfectly, and every day I choose to believe that the safest thing I can be is honest, that I'm worthy of being chosen, not because I'm useful, but because I'm me. And if you're listening to this thinking, damn, I've been stuck in this too, you're not alone. If you've been burned by fake kindness and you're scared to open up again, you're not broken. If you found yourself giving too much, hoping someone will love you back, you're not manipulative. You're human. You learned survival. And now you get to learn something else. You get to learn what it means to be kind without keeping score, to receive without shrinking, to rest in the love that people offer you and the love you offer yourself. So I'll leave you with this. If you're not sure whether the kindness you're receiving or giving is real, ask yourself this. Do I feel safe, or do I feel like I'm auditioning? Do I feel full, or do I feel like I'm being fed just enough to stay hungry? Do I feel like I can say no and still be loved? If the answer is no, that's not kindness. That's not performance. That's a performance. That's control. That's survival dressed up like love. But you deserve real love, real slowness, real rest. The kind that holds you instead of hooking you. If no one's told you lately, you are already worthy. You're already enough. And you don't have to perform to be loved here. Thanks for being with me today. And if any of this resonated, send it to someone who is still learning to receive. We're all in this together, guys. No strings attached. Okay. Love you. Bye.